Hi, it's Krista at the Secret Yarnery. Today we are making this super cute Easter basket. If English isn't your first language, you can click on this gear on the video and scroll through to find your preferred dialect. This easy-to-follow step-by-step crochet tutorial is also available in both right and left-handed, so please check the description box below to find the version that suits you best. This basket works up super quick and uses just regular stiff worsted weight acrylic, so any of that scratchy yarn you have laying around that you don't know what to do with, baskets are the perfect solution. The stiffer or scratchier the yarn, the better your basket will turn out. You will love making this basket. It works up super fast. We are using an 8mm crochet hook and 4 strands of yarn. Just simple double crochet stitches, so it's really fast and easy to do. And our handle is one piece, so we're not stitching that on. We're just going to build it and attach it at the same time as we are making our basket. And yes, this cute little flower is also included in the tutorial, as well as this smaller size. To make the smaller size, you're going to follow the exact same instructions, be using 2 strands, so 1 of each color. And you'll also be using a 4.5mm crochet hook. Another great thing about this pattern is our super flat bottom, so it sits really nicely. It's not wobbly at all. To make your super easy crochet Easter basket, we will need yarn. So we're going to have a main color. For the tutorial, I'm going to be making one in pink. And then my highlight color is going to be white. And a tiny, tiny bit of yellow just for the center of our flower. For our basket, I'm using an 8mm crochet hook. And for the flower, I am using a 5mm crochet hook. You will also need a pair of scissors and a needle for sewing in your ends. Here are the timestamps. You can jump back into where we left off. And let's get started. We're going to start with our main color, and we're going to triple up this yarn. So to triple your yarn, you just lay it out in front of you as wide as you can, and then just hold it on one side and bring your yarn back like that. So we make a little S shape. See that S shape? That's all we need to do. Now go ahead and get your highlight color and just lay that along with your other strands. So we have our 4 strands of yarn. Go ahead and pinch your tails. So the end here, these are our tails, and this is our working yarn on this side. So grab your tails. We're going to start by making a magic ring. So to make a magic ring, lay those tails over your non-dominant hand and hold them down on your ring finger, making an X. Wrap your yarn around your ring finger, so 3 fingers, and just hold it underneath your thumb. Turn your hand over and you will have a short strand and a long strand. Grab your 12mm crochet hook and slide it under the short strand on top of the long strand. Bring it under. Point the hook towards yourself, slowly loosening your thumb so this long strand can slide. Turn your hook to grab that long strand or the long strands. And now you can kind of pull out your fingers and just pinch what is underneath your hook. Turn your hook and slip stitch to form your ring. So there is your magic ring. Chain 2, 1, and 2. And we want to make sure we have our 4 strands after each stitch, just until you'll get the feeling of it, but in the beginning just count that you have the 4 strands. And now we have our loop here. It's gotten short, so we are ready to start tripling our yarn. So just put your fingers through that loop and grab the same color, the working yarn, and bring it through your loop, just like that. And just take a bunch out. I like to do this on my bed so I can lay my yarn all around my bed. You don't have to pull it through the loop so often. And now we have our yarn tripled. There's this little join right here, but don't even worry about it. We're just going to crochet straight over it, and you're not going to feel it. It's going to hide straight in your stitches. So don't worry about that one bit. And now go ahead and make 8 double crochets into the center of your ring, going over those tails. So wrap your yarn and 8 double crochets into the center of your ring, making sure you're using all of those strands of yarn. There's 2, 3. You can pause the video and keep working along. If your tail from your ring gets short, just go ahead and pull it a little bit. We have to be going over that tail. So make sure you always have that tail. Just give it a little pull to make sure it's long enough. Pause the video, keep working along. 8 double crochets, not counting our chain. And if you want to follow along with a written pattern, all of my patterns are written in plain English and available on my website, secretyarnery.com. So there's my 8 double crochets. Now we can take our tails and pull them really, really snug. If you're using acrylic yarn, you can really tighten it and close up that center. If you're using a natural fiber, be a little careful on pulling it really hard. They can snap and then you have to start all over again. So now we're going to slip stitch to the top of our first real double crochet to join. So that is right over here. So we're ignoring our chain. That's just going to help our circle look nice and full. So slip stitch to join, and we have a little bit of a dish. That's all right. Chain 2, 1 and 2. Now this does not count as a stitch either. And into the very same spot, right down here underneath that chain, we're going to make 2 double crochets into that same stitch. So 1 and 2. Into the next stitch, and each stitch around these little V's, we're going to be doing 2 double crochets into each. So 2 double crochets into the next stitch, 1 and 2, making sure you still have your 4 strands on your hook, and 2 double crochets into the next stitch, 1 and 2. And now you can pause the video and keep working around. 2 double crochets into each stitch all the way around. I'll meet you when we get back to where we started. And whenever you get your loop manageable or small, you can always just put your fingers through and pull more yarn straight through that loop. So pause the video and I'll meet you when you've made 2 double crochets into each stitch all the way around and you are over here. Now when we get back to where we started, we have this stitch here. It's actually our first stitch and we've already worked into it. But because we started just with 8 and we're making that nice flat bottom, we're going to be working into that stitch. But that's we're kind of like doing an increase. So into this same stitch right where we joined, we're going to do 2 double crochets. One and 2. And remember, whenever your loop gets small, just go ahead and get yourself some more yarn straight through that loop. And now we're going to slip stitch to the top of that first real double crochet to join right there. So slide your hook in and slip stitch to join and chain 2. 1 and 2. Now we're going to make 1 double crochet into this same stitch, 1 double crochet, and 2 double crochets into each of the next 2 stitches. So we're going to do 2 double crochets and 2 double crochets. So into the next stitch, 2 double crochets, 1 and 2. And into the next stitch, 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. Now into our next stitch, we're just going to do 1 double crochet. So 1 double crochet into the next stitch. And 2 double crochets into each of the next 2 stitches. If I'm going too fast, you can adjust the speed just by hitting this gear on the video right now and either slowing me down or speeding me up. There's 1 and 2. Into the next stitch, 1 double crochet. So we're doing an increase, and 1 double crochet. So you can pause the video and keep working around doing 2 double crochets, 2 double crochets, and 1 double crochet all the way around. I'll meet you when we get back to where we started. So when you get back to where we started, we're going to slip stitch to the top of that first real double crochet to join. So right over there, just pop your hook in and 1 slip stitch. So now's a good time to sew in your tail. Our loop we have to cut. So now let's go ahead, thread your needle and sew in your tails. Just like that, and now that finishes the bottom of our basket. To start the sides of our basket, chain 2, 1 and 2, and now we're going to be working into the back loops. So just these loops back there. So we're just going to have 4 strands of yarn on our hook, just working into those back loops only. So wrap your yarn and into this very first back loop right there, go in and make 1 double crochet. One double crochet into the next back loop only. And now into the next back loop only, we're going to do 2 double crochets. 1 and 2 into the same back loop. Oops, lost my strand. There we go. So 1 double crochet into the next stitch and 1 into the stitch after that, and 2 double crochets into the third. So that is the repeat for this round into the back loop only. So 1 double crochet, 1 double crochet, and 2 double crochets into that third back loop only. There's 1 and 2. Then we're getting this nice little row at the bottom of our stitches. So now you can keep going, doing 1 double crochet, 1 double crochet, and then 2 double crochets into that third back loop only. Just like that, all the way around your circle, and I will meet you when you get back to where we started. When you get back to where you started, we're just going to slip stitch to the top of that real double crochet to join. So we're just going to slip stitch right there. Pop your hook in and slip stitch and chain 2. 1 and 2. So to start the next row, we're just going to do 1 double crochet into each stitch. So starting right where our chain is and into each stitch, both loops, just like normal. So each stitch gets a double crochet all the way around. So nothing fancy anymore, we're just doing the easy work. So you can pause the video and keep working around. 1 double crochet into each stitch, and I will meet you when we get back to where we started. When you get back to where we started, we're going to slip stitch into the top of our first real double crochet to join, just like regular. So just pop your hook in and slip stitch to join. And chain 2. 1 and 2. So now we're going to repeat that row 3 more times. So a total of 5 rows of double crochet for the sides of our basket. So pause the video, keep working along, 3 more rows of 1 double crochet into each stitch, slip stitching to the top of our first double crochet to join, chaining 2, and keep going. So do that 3 more times, and I will meet you back. So there we are. I have done my 3 rows. And if you haven't already, you can inside out your basket. So that pretty little bottom is facing down. See how nice and flat it is? So good. And now we're going to slip stitch to the top of that first real double crochet to join, just like normal. 1 little slip stitch. And chain 25. 1, 2, 23, 24, and 25. And fold your basket in half. You are welcome to count your stitches if you would like to. I am just going to fold my basket in half. And find the stitch on the other end. So there's our chain. Pinching, pinching, pinching. Here is our stitch on the other side. So make a bigger loop and take your hook out. And put your hook into this stitch. It doesn't exactly matter which stitch. The stitch on the opposite side. Just put your hook there. Now, we want our chain to be coming over without any twists. So pretty side facing up and put those loops. So now pop those loops back on your hook and bring them through that stitch and shrink them up. There. Chain 1 and make 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way along this top edge of your basket. So you can pause the video, 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way around until you get to the chain. When you get to your chain, we are just going to work into the very first stitch. So I worked into the last stitch on the top of my basket, and then this stitch here is where our chain starts. So I'm just going to jump straight over and go into that chain. It doesn't matter if you're going into the top or bottom of that chain. You just have to do the same thing the whole way, because we're going to be working into this chain from both sides anyway. So I'm just going to go into the top loop and make 1 single crochet. And then 1 single crochet into each of these chains all the way along. Just this 1 loop at the top. You could work into the bottom if you want, it doesn't matter. Just do the same thing all the way along the chain. So pause the video, keep working along, 1 single crochet into each of these chains all the way, and I'll meet you when we get to the end of the chain. When you get to the end of your chain, we're going to make our last single crochet into this last chain right there at the bottom. We just want both sides of our handle to match. So our last single crochet. And now tip your handle up so you can kind of see where we're going to be joining it. We're going to join right over here. We're going to slip stitch. So we're going to skip the first stitch and slip stitch into the second, just so our handle lays nice and flat. So into the second stitch, slip stitch, chain 1, and pull up a bit of a bigger loop, about the width of your handle so far. Take your yarn and pass it to the other side of your handle. You don't have to, it'll still work if you don't, but I think it'll be easier for you to see what I'm doing if the yarn's coming from the same side. So our yarn is coming from the other side of our handle now. Make a bigger loop and take your hook out. So there is my loop. I'm going to put my hook into this very first chain right down here. So just pop your hook in. It doesn't totally matter. Nobody's going to see. You can also put a flower over top of this if it gets a little messy. So loops of yarn back on your hook and bring that yarn through. Make sure you have your 4 strands. Snug them down so they're about the right size and chain 1. So now we are ready to start making our single crochets into the other side of the handle. So we're going to do opposites. So every stitch, every single crochet we made on this side, we want to make a single crochet on the other side. So 1 single crochet, and into each stitch or each chain, 1 single crochet all the way around. So this, or all the way along, this is a lot easier to do because we already know where our hook is going. It's just matching the stitch we already made. So we're just doing the opposite, or doing a mirror image on the opposite side. So you can see where we're going to be putting our stitches is right where our other stitches start, all the way along. So I'm just going to pop my hook into the very same spot. 1 single crochet into each stitch, all the way along. So pause the video, keep working along. 1 single crochet, to match the single crochet on the other side, and I will meet you when we get to the end of our handle. When you reach the end of your handle, we just want to mirror what we did before. So our last single crochet into the last chain. And again, we're going to skip a stitch. We're skipping this little guy and we're going to single crochet into the second. So we're going to single crochet right there. So just pop your hook in and make one single crochet. So there is our handle finished on one side. And now keep going, one single crochet into each stitch all the way along this side. I'll meet you when we get closer to our handle. And I'm going to slip stitch into this second stitch right here to join. So not right at the bottom because we're at the top of our single crochet. See that? So we're going to slip stitch into the second. So you could do an invisible join if you really cared, if you really wanted to. And chain one to secure your yarn. Now go ahead and cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail. We have to sew these in. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. So there is our handle on the one side. There is our handle on the other. And I can go ahead and sew in these tails as well. And you could leave your basket just like this, or you could also make this cute flower to go on, and you just pick which side looks the messiest if you don't want to have the join visible, or if you don't want to have the handle join visible, whichever side you could decide to put that flower on. Now to make the flower, it's super easy to do. We're going to start again with a magic ring. So hold the tail over the palm of your non-dominant hand and hold it down with your thumb on your ring finger. Wrap it around 2 fingers, making an X. Bring it around that 3rd finger and just hold it also underneath your thumb loosely. Now we're going to be using our 5mm crochet hook. Slide it hook side down underneath the short strand, on top of the long strand. Bring the long strand under the short strand and point the hook towards yourself. Release your thumb a little bit so that long strand can slide. And grab the long strand. We're going to bring it through that loop on our hook. Just like that. So there is our magic ring. Chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. Wrap your yarn and into the center of that ring, we're going to do 7 double crochets. 1, 2, you can pause the video and get your 7 double crochets done. This is a lot easier now with just the 1 strand of yarn. So there's my 7 double crochets. Go ahead and pull that tail nice and snug. We're going to slip stitch into the top of the chain to join. So just into the top of the chain, not the stitch, just the chain. Right there, we're going to go in and slip stitch. So pop your hook in, slip stitch to join, and chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, pull your hook up and your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. Now grab your white yarn or whatever color you're using for your flower. And now we're just going to be working in between these stitches. So we don't have to look for a stitch. We're just going to be going in between any of them. So just pop your hook in between any of those stitches. Loop of your flower color yarn on your hook. I'm using white for mine. And you want to leave a long enough tail because we're going to be using these tails for sewing the flower on to our basket. So bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail, just holding it along the back of your work, and chain 2. 1 and 2. So this counts as our first double crochet. Wrap your yarn and into that very same space, we're going to do 4 more double crochets. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Pull your hook up, making a bigger loop, and take your hook out. We're going to be going in to the top of our chain. So this chain right there, we want 2 strands on the top of our hook. So pop your hook in, 2 strands on the top of your hook. loop of yarn back on, shrink it down, and bring it through. So a little slip stitch and chain 2. 1 and 2. Now we want to look for the very next space between our stitches. So there's our post. Our next space is right down in there. So pop your hook in to the next space. So wrap your yarn and into the next space between those stitches. We're going to be doing 5 double crochets into each. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Pull your hook up, take your hook out. We're going to be looking for that very first double crochet we made and going into the top of it right there. So just slide your hook in, loop of yarn back on your hook. I just hold my hook with my fingers so that loop doesn't fly off, and bring it through and chain 2. So we're going to do that into each space between all of these stitches all the way around our little wheel. So into the next space, just pop your hook in and make 5 double crochets. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Pull your hook up to make a bigger loop, take your hook out. Find that very first double crochet we made. Just pop your hook in, loop of yarn back on your hook, just holding it down, shrinking it, turning your hook and bringing it through, and chaining 2. So you can pause the video and keep working all the way around. You'll have a total of 8 popcorns, and I'll meet you when we get back to where we started. When you get back to where we started, do your chain 2 just like normal, 1 and 2, and now we're going to slip stitch right over into this chain space. So we're ignoring the entire popcorn. We're going to slip stitch right over into that space. Just pop your hook in and slip stitch and chain 2. 1 and 2. Now into that very same space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3, and chain 2. 1 and 2. Now into that very same space, we are going to slip stitch. So right where we are making our double crochets, we're going to finish with a slip stitch, and we're going to find the next space on the other side of that next popcorn, slip stitch into the next space, and chain 2. 1 and 2. So into the same space, right there, we're going to do 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3, chain 2, and slip stitch again into that very same space. Slip stitch. So those are our petals. So we're going to make a petal into each of these spaces between all of those popcorns. So to make a petal, slip stitch into the next space, chain 2, 1, 2, 3 double crochets into the same space, 1, 2, and 3, chain 2, and slip stitch back into the same space. There are our petals. So pause the video, keep working around doing a slip stitch, chain 2, 3 double crochets, chain 2, slip stitch into each of these spaces all the way around our flower, and I'll meet you when we get back closer to where we started. When you get back to where we started, we're just going to finish off that petal like we always have been. So our last slip stitch into the same space where we made our last petal, and chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn. We want to leave it longer because we're going to be sewing it onto our basket. Pull your hook up and your yarn through. Snug that down to secure. Turn your flower over. We want to pull on that center tail. Make sure it's really nice and shut. And we could just knot our center tails together and cut them off. Just make sure the center is snugged really nice and shut first. And then knot your yarn really tightly and go ahead and cut those off. thread your needle. And I do like these sharp tip needles. They are linked in the description box down below. Totally worth it. They really secure your yarn a lot better than the blunt tip. And I started with my outside tail, the tail we just finished. I'm just going to bring that down so it's not on the edge of my flower. I'm just going to stitch it maybe just into the center of any nearby petal, just so it's not on the edge. Grab your basket, and you can decide which handle you want to hide or which one doesn't look the best to you. One side has a join, which is this here, and one side has our handle where we joined our handle. So I think I'm going to put it on the side where I joined my handle, whatever side you want to cover up. And we want to keep the center of our flower just a little bit below this cross section right there. So how to do that? We're at the top petal here. So I'm just going to put that down. I'm going to stitch it here. So just popping my hook in, just where that handle began, probably into the first stitch of the handle, and bring that flower up. Now get your flower so the center of your flower, it matches the center of your handle. It's in line, and just keep holding that, or just hold that in place, and then work your way around underneath your flower, just grabbing a little bit of the flower every now and again and going back into the basket. So just pinch your flower in place and work your way around. We do have two tails we can use. I keep two tails just in case one is too short. If I forget to keep it long enough, I could use the second tail. But really, we could probably sew in our flower just with the one tail. There, just like that. So our flower is nice and secure. So now we can knot these two tails from the flower. I'm keeping my needle attached because we can still get rid of our tails a little bit. So just giving it a little knot. So go ahead, sew in your tails, and you're finished. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial as much as I did. I'm waiting for you in that video right there, and stay hooked.